heroes and there are legends. Heroes come and go. Legends never die. We usually say that you cannot become a legend before death. These are living legends. If the legends fall silent, who will teach the children of our ways? Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, brought to you by Titan Sensor, is proud to present The Legends. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches Podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, the Legends Series, and I've got a special one on tonight. He's currently the interim AD at Lagrange College, won 3 state championships at Lagrange High School. Coach Steve Pardue, thanks for being on with me.
Appreciate you having me, Chris. Really honored to be on this Legends here because you were telling me the guys are on there, and I'm not sure I'm up to their standard, but I appreciate you having me.
Well, Coach, I know that you aren't a Georgia guy. You coached at the high school, college, and a lot of levels in different states, and you were telling me at a get-together a while back that you are a native of Kentucky.
Right. I was actually born in Glasgow, Kentucky, and we moved when I was about 6 years old to Hopkinsville, Kentucky in western Kentucky, and went to high school at Christian County High School. And my head coach was a Hall of Fame coach in Kentucky, a guy named Fred Clayton, and I was fortunate enough to play for him towards the end of his career, and always had a close relationship with him until he passed a few years ago. His son was actually my offensive line coach, and still have a close relationship with him, and I'm proud of where I came from.
So what all did you play in high school? I'm sure back then everybody played everything.
Well, yeah, we were pretty good at a lot of sports, fortunately, in my high school, but I really just played football, and we started a competitive weightlifting team. Kind of got started when I was in high school, so I competed on it in the off season. But, did full with track a little bit, but not really, mainly just football and weightlifting.
So did you get an opportunity to play college ball?
I did. I played at Austin P, a 1AA program in Clarksville, Tennessee, and had a great time. I tell people if I couldn't have had any better time if I'd have went to Notre Dame, and still got a lot of real good friends. Sid Fritz, who coaches now, retired, was at Washington Wilkes, several other places in the state, Rome, is an Austin P graduate. Chris Jenkins, who was a longtime assistant coaches, Mark Daniels. There's a lot of guys from Austin P went into coaching, and a lot of us came to Georgia.
So you graduated from there. When you were there, did you know that you were going to be a coach, or did you go to school to do something else and just got in the wrong line?
I knew I was going to be a coach. I don't remember ever not wanting to be a coach. I told somebody one time, I think I struggled a little bit when I talked to kids about what they wanted to do, if they're as a high school coach, mentoring kids, and so many of them weren't sure what they wanted to do. And that was kind of foreign to me because as long as I remember, I wanted to be a high school football coach. And I think a lot of that goes back to my high school football coach, who I thought so much of. Even my dad and him were good friends, so I knew him at a young age. And he'd come by and pick me up, and I'd go to practice with him. So I always wanted to be a high school football coach. And a guy named Sam Pickett used to be the head coach at Rome for a while. One of the assistant coaches at Austin P when I played, and probably the biggest break of my career is my first job as an assistant coach. I got to work for Conrad Nix at Fayette County High School in Georgia, and really, I used to kid all the time about Patrick, his son, when Patrick's at Georgia Tech, and he introduced me to speak one time at a clinic, and I told people that as a 7th grader, Patrick actually hired me for my first job. Years later, Conrad told me he interviewed me and another young coach for the offensive line coach, and took me out I went out to eat with him, his 2 sons, Rusty and Patrick, they were in the seventh grade, ninth grader. And the other coach did the same thing, and he really didn't know who to hire, and they liked me the best. So I always gave Patrick credit for hiring me. But I went with Conrad there, and then the next year he went to Albertville, Alabama, and I'd never heard of Albertville, Alabama, never been there, and had been married for a week when he called us in one Sunday and wanted us to go there, and we went there with him. So, my wife found out what being a coach's wife was all about in a hurry.
So when y'all were at Fayetteville, y'all were in the same region with Coach Bass and all that group, weren't you?
We were. It was it was like the SEC. Really, you look back on it when Max was at Noonan, Danny Cronic was at East Coweta, Lloyd Bohannon was at Griffin. All these teams were so good. Even back then, Forest Park was so good. Riverdale, Bill Kennedy, and it was really a competitive region, a tough region. You talked about Rick Tomlin. A lot of people don't know he was at Jonesboro for a year. And he was there when I was there. So, it was very good football. And I told somebody, you come out of college, I think you know it all, and after about a week, you're not sure if the ball's blown up or stuffed. You got so much to learn. And again, I was so blessed to be around Conrad because not only is he a great football coach, but he was a great Christian man and a husband and a father, and I got to see that and learned a lot of lessons from that.
So how long were y'all in Albertville?
I was there 1 year. I was when I was 25. My brother-in-law, both my brother-in-law, all three of my brother-in-laws, my two sisters are both married to retired high school coaches, and my wife's brother was a high school football coach. But my one of my brother-in-laws, he was at a little small single A school. When I was in college, I'd go down the summer and help him out. He won a state championship there and left to go to a bigger school, and they hired another coach, and he lasted for a year. And then I got a call at 25 years old and got hired to be the head coach there.
And where was that?
That was in Marion, Kentucky at Crittenden County High School, and had a great superintendent. It was a great place for, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe God's got a plan for you. And we went back there and we were 70 miles from Murray State. And my wife went about 4 days a week to school and got her teaching degree. And we coached single A football there for 4 years. And I knew, I wanted to get back to Georgia. I knew football was more important in Georgia. And again, Sam Pickett, one of my college coaches, was assistant coach at Lagrange, and they had an opening for an outside linebacker coach. And I came down with Gary Guthrie, who was another great influence on my coaching, and came down here and got hired as an assistant. And really, we had an unbelievable staff on both sides of football. Rob Ridings was our defensive coordinator. Donnie Branch, who's been at LaGrange forever, was our D-line coach. Sam was our secondary coach, and I coached the outside backers just on defense. And David Traylor and who was a longtime offensive coordinator at LaGrange. David Pleasance, who's one of the best assistants I've ever worked with, was there on offense. Kenny Moore, not the Kenny Moore that you were talking about earlier, but another Kenny Moore who had been the head coach at Charlton County, and a guy named John Revere. A lot of people remember his son, JR, was a great quarterback when I was a head coach, went on to play at Georgia Southern, and John ended up eventually moving on to coaching in college at Eastern Kentucky. But we just had a great staff, and I came from single A football in Western Kentucky, and I got here, and we were the number one rated 4A when there was only 4 classes in the state. And that first year we won USA Today. I'll never forget, we were out running 40s on our testing day, and my job was to record 40s. And I was amazed how many guys we had run 4.75 or better. And that night I went back home and I was calling all my Kentucky friends, and I was like, man, we've got this many guys can run this and this many can run that. And about a month later, we started watching film of Griffin and all these other teams, and I said, they got them too, so everything gets relative where you're at,
So how long were you there with Coach Pickett?
Well, I was actually, Coach Pickett was Coach Guthrie.
Coach Guthrie, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I actually coached the outside linebackers in 91. Like you say, we won the state. We're USA Today national champions. Just an unbelievable year. And then the next year, I moved to be the offensive line coach. And then the third year as an assistant, I became the defense coordinator running the weight room. I was really happy. And Gary took the job at Rome High School. And quite honestly, I thought I was going with him. It was closer to Kentucky and Tennessee for me and my wife to our family going up to North Georgia. And Gary offered me to run the weight room. They'd given him a bunch of money they'd built a new weight room, but we were going to get to buy the flooring, the equipment for it. And I was excited about that. And and then, I was asked, the athletic director said, "Are you going to apply for the job at Lagrange?" And I kind of said, "Well, I'm really thinking about it." And then she asked me again, and I thought, well, I better throw my name in, and I was 32 years old and got offered the job. And just, really exciting time. And I was lucky that Donnie stayed on branch, was a defense coordinator. David Traylor stayed. And then for the next 17 years, I was the head coach, and I had the same two coordinators. So we never had a lot of change on our staff. And if we did, it was usually somebody that somebody had worked with. So that really worked out well for us. And the first year we went 0-4 to start my career here, and I wasn't sure if they made the right hire, and there was a lot of people I'm sure in town wasn't sure either, but we kind of righted the ship and got to 5-5, and then kind of built on it. In the third year, things kind of got really rolling for us.
So how long did it take before y'all won the first state championship you won as head coach?
We were at 94. I was the head coach, and we won our first state championship in 01. And then we were fortunate enough to win it in 03 and 04. And I tell people our best team might have been 02. We had a little controversial call down in Screven County where my guy we were in safe punt late in the game, playing a defense and automatic fair catch. And the only thing I can figure out, my guy who's been doing it 4 years, fair called it real early, and the referee started walking towards him. And I just, again, you think about it a million times. I assume somebody hollered he didn't fair catch. And when he pitched the ball, the referee jumped out of the way.
Yeah,
and all their guys were running off the field, and all of ours were running off the field, but two of theirs saw it, and one batted it back inbounds, the other one picked it up and ran it in for a touchdown. And really, the officials, Georgia High School, there's nothing they could do, but they did rule it was an illegal batting, should have been called. But, I'll be honest with you, I look back, I tell people, during that 4-year run, I probably got more calls and more letters that year that we got beat because how our coaches and our players and our fans handled a tough situation, And I'm not sure we'd have won it in 03 if we hadn't won it if we had won in 02. We weren't quite as good in 03 as we were the other 2 years, but we just had an edge about us. And we had a kid named Wesley Woodyard, who was a senior that was probably the greatest leader I've ever coached, So he made all the difference on the 03 team.
That was something Coach Walker said about, when their first time they won it, they were very, very talented. And then the second year, the second time they won it, he said they weren't as talented, but the team had better chemistry, if that makes any sense. And they just had.
Yeah, I think, people ask, what's your favorite one? And I'm sure, Chip's been asked the same thing, and you really hate to say that. They're all different. Obviously, the first one, we had a really talented senior class, really, and a bunch of good young players. But, a kid named Sam Elijah-Butu went on and played at Arkansas. He was about a 5'8" linebacker that's probably the best football player pound for pound I ever coached. He's extremely intelligent, but it didn't slow him down. And I told him his junior year for spring practice, I remember I said, "Look, Sam, this is your team. What you do, they're going to follow. I'm the head coach, but you're going to lead this team." And the first day of spring practice, we had like a 3:45 roll call, and one of the coaches came in at 3:40 and said, "Coach, they're ready." I said, "What?" Said, "Everybody's dressed. They're in the team meeting room waiting on you." And I went in, and Sam was on the front row, and he just kind of led everybody. And we had a great game up in Cedartown on a cold night, and that was the year of 9/11. So the season got pushed back. So I think the state championship game was the 21st or 22nd of December, and it was cold up in North Georgia. And we kind of made some mistakes we hadn't been making, and it was a really close game late, and we scored with 17 seconds left to to win that one. And it's something I dreamed about my whole life. Like I said, I always wanted to be a coach, and I thought I was handling it really well until I saw my wife. And man, I saw her and just lost every emotion I've ever had in my body, and then we came back like in '03 when we won it. It was almost like I was on the sideline pinching myself. I really couldn't believe it. And kind of like you say, we were really a great team then. Maybe not, we were so good on defense, but and they were young. And then '04, I guess probably the best way to put it, we were pulling out of the parking lot one time. My offensive coordinator, for some reason, was riding home with me, and we lived in the same neighborhood. And he said, "Man, I hope we don't screw this up." And I said, "Shut up," And really, we didn't have a close game that year. I think 11 points might have been our closest game, and we did. We were so talented, and defensively, we were just really unbelievable. Probably one of the better defenses. We were 3A then, when 5 classes, and Trey Blackman was the big name guy, but man, there were so many other guys on that defense, and it wasn't. And obviously, they were very talented, but it's just their mentality. They took it personal to give up a yard, much less a touchdown. And
Well, that
you
was
get
the
special
year.
groups like that and good coaches, you're in good shape.
Oh yeah, that was the year I told you about that. Me and DT were standing down the end zone when y'all played Carrollton, and the opening kickoff, one of your guys laid a kid out, and the game was delayed because they had to take him out on a backboard. I was like, "Good Lord!" They've laid the wood to start the game. It set the tone early, and it wasn't Trey Blackman; it was the other linebacker.
It was actually Braxton Kelly. Braxton.
Yeah.
And I tell people, Braxton played defensive end for us and ends up playing Mike Backer and starts as a freshman at Kentucky. But we had a kid named Travis Hart that played what we called our Sam. A lot of people called it Mike. And he went to Eastern Kentucky, and he was a great linebacker. But we had a lot of guys that were linebacker type guys, that could run. And we never had the real big linemen, back when I was coaching there. We've gotten bigger at the Lagrange the last few years. We always were smaller, both sides. So we slanted, moved around on defense. And then, of course, we were wing T to try to help us with the angles. And, we tried to expand the wing, depends on who was our quarterback and who we had. And I was always proud of that. We had Bruce Thornton at tailback, and we became kind of an I wing. And then, before him, J.R. Revere was there, and we were kind of a little bit of option with the wing. And then when Blake Mitchell came, it all changed. We're 4 and 5 wide, but we still have wing principles. So it all kind of came back. We never got too far away, but we weren't scared to try things.
Yeah, it's always been fun for me to listen to some of the coaches talk about playing your teams, and they're like, you look over on one side and you're like, well, we can't run over there. And then you look over, well, let's try the other side. And that kid ends up being a parade All-American college. And they're like, I can't believe we thought that was the side we should run to.
I tell you, we were, when Trey and Travis Hart, both of them were sophomores, and both were 3-year starters at linebacker. And after their sophomore year, we were down at a meeting in Macon with all the region champs and everything. And some kind of conflict was going on in the country, overseas somewhere. I can't remember. I'm not real good at that stuff. And somebody was talking about it, and Frank Barden was at Cartersville at the time. He said, I tell you what we need to do. We need to send those 2 young linebackers from Lagrange over there. They'll straighten them out. So, again, like I say, we were very blessed. But, man, we played against some really good ones too, So that was the thing about I always told our guys, when you had a really good team, I always felt like there was probably 5 or 6 teams in every class that was probably good enough to really win it, and you had to get that break, and you had to stay healthy, and, you had to stay within yourself. And I was always proud of our guys that they did that. And again, I go back, man, I was so blessed to have great assistant coaches. I really was. And we had great players too, don't get me wrong, but I was just in the right place at the right time. I think, certain people fit certain schools. I don't know if I'd have been successful somewhere else. I don't know if other people have been successful here. Lagrange, for whatever reason, ended up being a really good fit for me and my family. And again, the coaches that, I'll be honest, when I was in high school, you'd have said Lagrange, Georgia. I never heard of Lagrange, Georgia, growing up in Western Kentucky, and now this is my home. I'll never leave here.
So after your run at Lagrange, what did you decide to do after that?
Well, one of my best friends, Joker Phillips, became the head coach at Kentucky. And he had tried to get me, I had been offered an assistant's job up there with Rich Brooks 2 other times. We had sent a lot of guys up there. Everybody was calling Lagrange Pipeline and calling me and Joker. But I was like, like most of the time I was like, who are they beating to get these guys? The other people aren't offering these kids at the SEC. I said, he believes because our relationship, he would trust my opinion when I told him this guy can play. I know the other guys from here that have played, he can play there. And most of them, if not all of them, panned out and were good players there for him. So, and I turned it down twice. And then Joker became the head coach and offered me the running backs job. And, it was a chance to go home being from the state of Kentucky. And, I was like, man, let's give it a shot. And I have no regrets about that. We went up there and I was actually there for, right 3 years, 2 seasons. I went into December and coaching a bowl game, then 2 seasons, and then we didn't win enough games, so we didn't get rehired. And my son always said, "Dad, you didn't get fired." And I said, "Well, they asked for my keys. So I kind of took that as they didn't want me to come back. And I knew I wanted to come back to Georgia, but I had a 2-year contract. So my son was a junior, and I just sat him down and I said, "Hey, where do you want to live? Do you want to finish high school here? Do you want to go back to Lagrange?" And he loved Lexington, but he chose to come back to Lagrange. And so I came back and I took off a year, and I was just a dad, because I was still getting paid. And the ironic thing about it is he ended up starting dating a girl from up there about 3 years later, and now he's married, living in Lexington, coaching high school football up there. So it all worked out. But so I came back home and I knew I needed 3 years to retire, and had the opportunity. East Coweta came open, and it was drivable from LaGrange, a 40-minute drive. And Evan Horton, who is now the superintendent of schools in Coweta County, was the principal at East Coweta, and didn't know Evan, but we knew some of the same people. And a guy named Ken Kesselring was the AD, who's now the top assistant superintendent in Coweta. He was our AD, and they were great to work for. And I really enjoyed my 3 years at East Coweta. We never, we were playing 7A ball, and just we won 8 games every year. We just couldn't get it over the hump in the playoffs, but it was a fun time there, and we felt like we got them going in the right direction. And kept some coaches that were there that were really good coaches. I told them, I said, "Look, let me interview these guys, and let me see what I think about them." And kept quite a few of them, and they were really good football coaches, and I enjoyed coaching with them. And that just kind of got me to retirement. I went over to Lagrange College, and after that, and I was the head football coach there. And nothing against Division III football, but I just had never done that, and I don't know, it just really wasn't a fit for me. But I kept a good relationship there, obviously. So now I'm back and I'm doing the interim AD, and we've got a really good football coach there, Wes Dotson. He came from Sydney Hampton and really understands Division III. And they went 6-4 last year, and they've retained a bunch of their players. And I watch them work out, 2 or 3 times a week right now, and really impressed with the job he and his staff do, and the kids they brought in. It's fun to me to meet the kids, like I met a kid from Vienna today, Dooley County. Jimmy Hughes, friend of mine, was his coach as a freshman. I met a kid from Southwest DeKalb the other day, and he never met Buck Godfrey, but he knew who Buck Godfrey was, and just meeting kids, and even soccer players and, tennis players. It's been fun for me, like I know who your high school football coach is, because I still know a lot of guys in the state.
Well, how much fun is it, or how much of a challenge is it, I'd say, to transition from, just being, a successful high school football coach to going into more of an administrative role? Because you got a lot more on your plate.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different, but I've really enjoyed it, and really it's all about helping kids. That's what most, hopefully, people that get into coaching, that's what it's about, and see these kids grow, and hopefully you can make a little bit of a difference and help the coaches out. And if there's some young coaches, maybe mentor them a little bit. But I tell you what, I love being around kids. It kind of it keeps you young. I tell you what, I have found out during this process is that I think I'm a lot better working than I am not. I was starting to get bored. So when this thing died down, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I think I'm going to have to find me something else to kind of occupy my time because it's been real rewarding. So I don't think it's something I want to do all the time. I do want to have some flexibility. I've got two grandkids here, and my son's about to have a baby up in Kentucky. So we won't want to go up there. And we go up a couple times a year and watch his high school team play. So thank goodness for that NFHS. I watch all kinds of games at home now. I can watch about every one of his games. And a lot of times when they play in the city, they play at 6:30. So I'll watch their game, and towards the end, I'll go over to Callaway Stadium and watch obviously Lagrange, but then I'll go over watch Troop and Callaway some. And at the middle school games, I go to some of them in the county and know a lot of the kids a lot of my ex-players are coaching at, Lagrange feeder school, and remember some of the kids when they played at Troop and Callaway that are helping out there. So that's fun.
Well, I know Coach Truitt, Charles Truitt, told me he stayed retired for exactly a week and realized his wife was working him more than he was going to be working, so he might as well go back to work.
Yeah, and Matt Napier and those guys, Matt's doing a great job. I tell people I couldn't have handpicked anybody I would want to be the head coach at my old school more than Matt Napier. And he is really good to me, him and his staff. But you always feel like, man, I don't need to be over here too much. This is their time. But they are really good to me when I go over, and they'll listen to a story or two. And I exercise over there some. But like I say, this is a great football town. I tell you, we're very fortunate right now. I tell people all the time, like I say, I love Matt and his staff. But I tell you, Tanner Glisson out at Troop is doing a great job. And of course, Pete over at Callaway, man, they're Wiggins, they're doing such a good job over there too. So we've got three really quality football programs, and really proud of our Board of Education. They've all got really nice facilities. And of course, Callaway Stadium, I'll put it up against any high school stadium in the state. And we're in the process of getting a new turf on it. So, things are really going well for high school sports in Troup County.
So what are some things over the years while you were at the high school level that you noticed change, or that you watched change from when you first got in that you just think is not really good for the game?
Well, the part that, so many kids, whether it's them or their parents, they put so much pressure about getting a scholarship, or, I try to tell when I have a chance to speak to kids, I go out to some camps and stuff and speak, and I always try to tell them, enjoy this right now, enjoy your time in high school football. People are trying to get to the next level and, do this and do that. This is going to be the most fun you ever have playing football. I really believe that. I think high school football is as pure as form. Now, I'll be honest, I don't like it now, how these kids are transferring schools and everything. I guess I'm old. I don't like that. I always enjoyed, hey, we're going to take our kids in this part of Troup County, and we're going to work real hard, and we're going to go play your school. And if you beat our tail, we're going to shake hands and go back home and work, and if you beat us, I don't like how people are moving around, and in college or in high school. I think it's, bad lessons for kids, uh, you know, it scares me that we're going to see divorce rate go up. Hey, I'm not happy for a day. I'm going to change. I'm going to change schools, and it's not only in college, it's in high school now. I don't like that's going on. So things like social media, I'm glad it wasn't as big when I was coaching. I'll be honest. I know this, I think it's a lot of it's great, but then a lot of it, I look at some of that social media and I think, boy, I'm glad I'm not coaching, so but I miss the grass. I miss the relationship with the kids and being out on the grass coaching. I still, I stay involved. I've got some friends that, Joker, he invites me for a week every week up to been North Carolina State the last few years. And I get to go in all their meetings, and watch during their two-a-days and stuff. So I enjoy that. It gives me a football fix. And, like I say, I watch a lot of film, watch a lot of games. And I've got friends that I'm on their huddle account, so I can watch the real cut ups and everything. So But so I enjoy that. I still enjoy the game.
So, what are some things, like huddle? I mean, how awesome is that compared to what you used to have to do when you first got started?
And really, it really all that happened from when I went to Kentucky to came back to East Coweta. When I left in 2010, there wasn't huddle. When I got to East Coweta, they started explaining it to me and everything. I'm like, wow, so guys are sitting at home doing stuff on Saturday. So when you get there at Sunday, really it cut our work day on Sunday almost in half. Because at Lagrange we used to input film for about 4 hours, and then we would game plan for another 4 or 5 hours. Well, now by the time you get to school, everything's inputted. If the coaches do it, they can be watching the game on television at the house on Saturday, and the timeouts. One of them's doing down and distance, one of them's calling the play, one of them's just doing the segments, and it all comes together. So it's been a great tool. I remember we're going to meet up here at the Dairy Queen and trade film. Run, Columbus for years. We'd meet up there on exit 25 underneath the bridge to trade film. And then I remember when DVDs first came. Heck, you'd trade film, you get back, and it wouldn't work. It didn't record something, and you'd have to send somebody to the other team, and I always said, one day we'll be emailing film, but I didn't know it was going to happen so fast.
The
But
coach,
it really, that is a good thing. There's another thing I don't like video on the sideline. I don't like that. Everybody, you can watch your film on the sidelines.
oh yeah,
I don't like that. I think that takes my old school that takes away from coaching. Like I had a friend, he told me, he said, I almost feel like I'm cheating, looking at the film on the sideline. Of course, everybody else is doing it too. Where used to, you had to see it yourself or communicate with your players what they were getting, and now, boom, I got instant, right here in my hand, so I'm not, I don't think all technology makes things better. I do like huddle. I wouldn't do I know they have the thing called huddle assist now where they'll even break down the film for you. That would scare me because I'd still want to watch every play, and make sure that, I got a feel for it. I used to like, after breaking down, just watch a film, in the order it went, not just all the first downs or all the, second shorts. I still think there's something to having a feel for just watching the play of the game.
yeah. That's you talking about watching film from the sideline. That was something Chip said that he didn't like. A lot of the younger coaches they rely on the kids just come off the sideline and you just show them a replay of what happened. And he's like, no, you watch what's going on so you can fix it while it's going on. And if they need to see it later, then that's fine. Or, DT told me once that, Danny Cronick could watch a play, and after watching one play, he could tell you what the other 22 people did. And I mean, all you older guys,
Nix,
that's what y'all could do. And that's how we
Conrad
learned.
Nix, when I first worked for Conrad Nix that first year, we would go scout. And I'm telling you now, that first year I worked for him at Fayette County, we grinded because we were in the region with LaGrange and Griffin and those people, but Noonan but we were in that Clayton County region, and they had all those schools and they had one stadium. So somebody was you either playing on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, and early in the year, the day you weren't playing, you were scouting those other two. And a lot of times you'd be scouting both teams early in the year, so your offensive coaches are watching the other team's defense, your defensive coaches are watching their offense, and we'd be calling out stuff and somebody would miss something and Conrad would tell them what it was on the offensive side of the ball. Somebody missed them on defense, he'd tell them what it was, And I remember as a young coach, that just amazed me that he could see that.
So did he ever send you to go trade film?
I'm sure I did. I tell you what my job was back then. When this is how old I am, I didn't have to trade film. I had to be the one to get up in the morning and drive. Our booster club president after the game would drive up to College Park and drop our film off to be developed. And me and Charles Anthony, one of the really good football coaches, was just came back and was Perry's defensive coordinator when Kevin Smith won the state. Charlie finally retired, a really, really good ball coach. He was another guy that I worked with 1 year, but it's the first year I coached. And he taught me so much. But me and Charlie, we'd be up there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and there'd be a line of coaches up there. It was like I always said, it was like a crack house waiting on the drugs to come out, and they'd come out and they say, well, I got the Griffin Lagrange copy, Griffin's deal, and Griffin coach would go up there and they'd take off. You'd sit there and you'd wait for them to come out and call your name, and you'd get that film. My high school coach said, I remember he'd tell me stories about they would have to take the film to the train station. To the bus station, and it would be bused to Nashville, up in Nashville, and they wouldn't get the film back till Sunday night from the bus station. That was their UPS before, all the FedEx and all that stuff, So, that stuff that's changed is really good, but, you miss the old times too.
So what was your overall coaching philosophy? If somebody sat you down, if you were interviewing for a new job and they were like, hey, coach, what's your coaching philosophy? Not X's and O's, but just like program philosophy.
Well, from a personnel standpoint, we were going to put the best players on defense, unless you were really special. Now, if you were a special quarterback or a special running back, we were going to put. But we were going to. Somebody told me a long time ago, and it always stuck with me. The difference between offense and defense, you can punt on offense. If you screw up on defense, you got to try to block an extra point. So we were always going to try to be really good on defense. We were going to try to be great in special teams. I always told our guys, and I'm a believer that if you win 2 out of 3, you normally win, offense, defense, or special teams. So we always felt like at LaGrange, we were going to put so much time into it. Our coaches planning it, our coaches teaching it, us repping it at practice, everybody being involved in it, that, hey, we're taking that out of the mix. We're going to win the special team. Now we just got to win offense or defense. Don't turn the football over offensively. So, and saying all that, that's good, but then you also have to adjust. I remember from 2000 to 2004, we were so good on defense. In 2003, we won a game 2-0. Third round of the playoffs, we beat Swainsboro 2-0. I had friends call me, go, man, congratulations. We had a typo in the paper. What was y'all score? I said, no, that was the score. we lined up to kick a field goal, got a high snap. The holder missed the tee. The kicker barely kicked the ball. It died on the 1-yard line, and we downed it like a punt. So they tried to run a sweep, and Wesley Woodyard tackled it for a safety. And we won the game 2-0. When I went to East Coweta, one of the defensive coaches there, Darren Edwards, said, Coach, I knew I was going to like you. Anybody that ever won a game 2-0, I knew I was going to like. So that was big deal. Like I say, special teams were big, and just unbelievable effort. I always told her I ran my own weight room. I had help with other coaches during the season, but I was basically ran my own weight room and my own off-season deal. And I would tell the coaches, it's my job. I'm going to get them where they give great effort. When you get them, you teach them technique and everything, but they better know how to go hard and, run down. I was real big on, Conrad's thing was always, you take care of the little things, big things will take care of themselves, So if we tell you to run down and touch that line with your hand and run through that line, if you didn't do all those, you're going to do it again, and in the winter, we would try to develop those habits. So when we got to the field, those were ingrained already. And you know how it is. You get one group going, then the young guys, they just come in and they follow the old guys,
How important do you think having a great administration is and was back then compared to, I know having a great staff is really, really important, but how integral do you think it is to having a great program as having a great administration and supportive administration is?
It is, I'm a little bit different on that in some, I was always blessed. Now, I never had a problem with any administration I had. I didn't. I was real lucky. But, and sometimes, and I've had guys that had coached And I think sometimes you got to make sure that guy ain't got coaching still in him. He may know more than you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And then the other deals, that like, I had principals that I had a really good one that he didn't know much about football, but he figured out that in Lagrange, Georgia is real important, and uh, I guess my deal was my AD, because he was kind of always in between. And I was so blessed. I had a lady named Lois Myers who hired me at Lagrange, and she had been the women's basketball coach in the 80s, and just I think she won 3 state championships, ended up being the head coach of University of Alabama for a while, and got out of coaching and came back here and was working in private business, and came back, was AD, and she was really good. And then a guy named Frank Parsons, really good. And then at the end, I had Jay Russell, Irk Russell's son, who works for Georgia High School, and they were just so good. Jay was so good because Jay had been a coach, and man, he was like my psychiatrist in the mornings. I'd go in and sit down and talk to Jay a lot. About every morning we'd have a conversation. So, but I tell you, I my coaches did a great job in the classroom. And I think if you're doing that, your administration's probably going to like you. So when they were looking for a history teacher and we were looking for a football coach, they had no problem with us being involved in that process because they knew we wanted the same thing they wanted. We wanted somebody that was going to be a good role model, good person for these kids. And yeah, if he wasn't a good teacher in the classroom, he probably wasn't going to be a good teacher on the football field. So, I think all that goes hand in hand. And I was just really blessed to have great administrations.
All right. One of my favorite questions to ask y'all. One of my favorite things to listen to y'all talk about. Who are some of your favorite people to coach against over the years, whether they kicked your tail or you kicked your, and I know who one of them is, but whether you got the best of them or they got the best of you, who are some of your contemporaries that you just thoroughly enjoyed competing against over the years?
It had to be Ray Van would have to be way up there, Teague,
I knew that.
because
I knew that'd be the
yeah,
one.
yeah. He and I just, we've always had such a good, first time I ever played him, I really didn't know him. In 2000, we played him, Swainsboro came up here in the second round of the playoffs, and we were both had really good football teams, and they had kind of had a hiccup and got upset down there, and they had a 3-way tie, and they end up being the second draw, which they should have been first. We shouldn't have played them in the second round. And that's back when we had grass, and when we played in the mud, and they beat us 6-0. But, and he always coached kind of like I did. They were going, try to be really good on defense too. And we always had good times with each other, mess with each other. So I thought the world, I tell you, Coach Herring, the old Robert Herring that was at Noonan for a while, man, he and I got to have a great relationship, and just thought the world of him. And I loved, competing against him. And I can go back to my Kentucky days. My biggest rival was my brother-in-law. But I was single A and he was 2A, so we would always get together on Saturday afterwards though, and kind of critique each other a little bit, not worrying about next year's game right then, but trying to help each other rest the way. But there's so many guys. I mean, like I say, man, coaching, and I hope it still is, was such a fraternity back then. Even like Bubba Jeter, Tommy Walburn, at Troop, they were. Everybody always thought, man, I know y'all hate those Troop guys. I didn't hate those guys. They were the only guys in town that had the same job I did. That really understood what we were going through. So they were always, Danny at East Coweta was always fun to play because we did. He had been here, and my offense coordinator and him had worked together. He had been his offense coordinator, and I never remember playing Danny that we didn't come out and we'd steal an idea of theirs. It was like we have so many plays that I'll be honest with you. Hey, we saw Danny do this, and stole ideas, and that's all coaching is, and not a lot of original ideas. We usually steal them from each other and modify them a little bit, But all those guys were a lot of fun. And, Mike Paris at Jackson, I think back at him, we had some really good games. But I guess I'd have to put Ray Van up there at the top, though.
Yeah, me and DT
that is a good question.
Well,
I've
me and
been
DT.
asked that.
Well, me and DT were talking about how that was the gold. The 80s and the 90s to us were like the golden age of coaching, where you got to coach against, whether you were a head coach or an assistant, Max Bass, and you coached with for Conrad Nix, and you got to see Billy Henderson, and you got to see Dan Pitts, and you got to see these guys that, these legendary guys, Charles Winslow,
Buck
these
Godfrey,
guys.
Buck
Buck
Godfrey.
Godfrey.
My first game as a head coach was against Southwest Cab and Buck Godfrey with Quincy Carter at quarterback. And Buck, I would tell you what, Buck Godfrey to me is one of the most underrated coaches in the history of the state of Georgia.
Oh, there ain't no doubt.
I'd always heard people say, oh, they just have a bunch of athletes and everything. We started preparing for Buck. They ran the wing tee, the wishbone, and 4 wides, and they played about 20 kids. They just sent in a whole new group of kids to run this offense, whole new group to run it, and they were so well coached. And I always had just tremendous respect for Buck, and end up becoming friends with him, and just thought the world of him. And I always thought, man, he was really, underrated as far as the kind of coach, because I think everybody knew he was such a builder of men, and that shouldn't be taken away from him. I'm not trying to, but I think the ball part of it, he didn't get the credit he deserved.
Oh, I agree 1,000%. There's so many times and so many coaches that people go, oh, well, they just had athletes. Well, you still got to coach them up. You still got to get them out there. You can't just cut them loose and let them go.
You got to get them to the game, too. A lot of times them athletes, there's a lot of problems go along with them, too, But,
Coach,
like I say, I always respected the guys we played, and like I say, you wanted to beat them real bad, but afterwards, man, they're still doing the same job you're doing.
Well, Coach, you sure did get them to the game over the years, and it was an honor and a privilege to get to watch you do it, and I'm glad I've got to meet you at clinics and get to see you at all-star games and kind of get to hang around and just listen to you tell stories and just grow up in the coaching profession, watching you and your contemporaries do what you do and look up to you guys. And I appreciate you coming on tonight and sharing with us your story.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Like I say, anything I can do to promote high school sports, because like I say, there's things that are different now than I like, but I look back at it and, I'm sure when I was 20-something years old, guys that were in their 60s, they were saying the same thing. Time's got to move on, but I still think the greatest lessons we can teach these kids are high school sports and, just be involved in something in your school, and not just sports, any extracurricular activity. Friday nights wouldn't be Friday nights without the band, wouldn't be without the cheerleaders. And God, you see all these great student sections now, at games. And I just think it's still a great, great deal, and I hope it never goes away.
Well, Coach, I sure do appreciate you. Thank you so much.